Ko te wai o Waikato, ko te wai o te uru, ko te wai o te Rāwhiti, te wai o Hauraki e. Tēnei ka hara mai ia kore whakamauturu, ke ki ia ke kinga iwi whakarongo e, titiro e. The Hauraki Waikato electorate northern boundary reaches the southern shore of the Manukau Harbour in the west and the Coromandel Peninsula in the east. It stretches to the Kaimai Ranges south of Matamata to the south of Kawhia on the west coast. It has nearly 35,000 registered voters and a turnout of just over 68% at the 2020 election. Tonight, it's the Hui Hauraki Waikato electorate debate, Te Pōtitanga 2023. E ngā mate o te wā haramai, haere. Tātou e whakamahara ake nei a rātou mā ki te urupā, arā ki te hena ngaro tangata. Ti he wa mauri ora, and welcome to this, the Hui Hauraki Waikato electorate debate. And we have the two leading candidates in the electorate here tonight. So let's get to them now. She is the candidate for Te Pāti Māori Heuri no Waikato, Ngāti Porou, Te Ātiawa, Ngaitahu, me ngā puhi, Hana-Rāwhiti, Maipi-Clarke, tēnā koe. And she is the sitting MP for Hauraki Waikato and the candidate for the Labour Party. Heuri no Waikato, Ngāti Maniapoto, me ngā puhi, the Honourable Nanaia Mahuta, tēnā koe. Tēnā kōrua, no mai rā. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. Now we undertook again that sacred process of rock, paper, scissors to determine who would speak first with their 1-minute introduction tonight, and that honour goes to Nanaia Mahuta. Kei a koe te wā.
Tēnā koutou katoa, tuatahi e mihi ana ki ngā mate huhua o te wā, o te marama, o te wiki o nanahi. Nō reira, kei te whānau apanui, ngā whānau waititi, e kore e mutu ngā whakaro ki a koutou i tēnei wā. Hoki atu rā ki te tai tokerau, te whānau hōhepa, hoki mai rā ki te kāinga ki ngā whānau pautapu, e mihi ana, e mihi ana. Nō reira, tēnā koutou katoa. It's my pleasure to be able to be here and represent Hauraki Waikato for this forthcoming election. I'm really proud of our achievements over the last 6 years. What I bring is service, leadership and experience, but more importantly, a listening ear. Because I know that Hauraki Waikato deserves the very best representation. In the last 6 years, we have done so much to advance the aspirations for Māori, to provide optimism and hope that our country can go forward, ensuring that Māori aspiration is at the core of what we do. That's why I'm standing as the Labour candidate for Hauraki Waikato. But here's the thing, if we want to progress with momentum, then I'm seeking a party vote for Labour. And if we want to ensure that we've got the very best representation, then I'm asking voters to vote for me. I'm not on the party list, and I know that we deserve good representation. Lastly, can I mihi to Hana-Rāwhiti as a young candidate putting her hand up in a really difficult and challenging time in politics. I want politics to be a positive place for young Māori going forward. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Nanaia Mahuta, tēnā koe. Kei a koe, iaia nei Hana-Rāwhiti.
Tuia te rangi e tū nei, ka pai. Tuia te papa e takoto nei, ka pai. Tuia te pauherenga tangata te motu, a kingi tū heitia, potatau te whirowhiro, te tuawhitu, rire rire hau, pai mariri. A tēnā rā tātou e te iwi. Ko Hana-Rāwhiti Maipi-Clarke tōku ingoa. Heuri tēnei no ngā hau e whao te motu, and I am standing for Te Pāti Māori. Can I please just acknowledge, arangatira he, Nanaia Mahuta, I have to make sure that we are protecting our whakapapa, because we come from the same clubs, we come from the same marae, we come from the same hapu, and I'm not here to fight over a seat, I'm here to build a table for our future generations so that they are allowed to come in. And this is my message to the people who raided my house, who came into my house and threatened me, to the people who came and vandalised my fence. Don't be scared, because the kohanga reo generation are here, and we have a huge movement and a huge wave of us coming through. I am not scared and I am not fearful. I am here to be a courage and here to be a light and a māramatanga for us, that we belong in these places. Kia ora.
Hana-Rāwhiti, tēnā koe. E ngā wahine rangatira, toa mārohirohi, tēnā kōrua. And again, thank you both very much for your time. Our hui reporter, John Boynton, went into the manawa of Te Rohe Pōti o Hauraki Waikato. Ke mātaki take ake rā tātou ki tā John I hahu ake ai.
We bid you a warm welcome to Hana-Rāwhiti.
I come from here. This is my motu whenua. I'm proud of where I come from.
Small town like this likes being a small town.
Kia ora, I'm John Boynton from the Hui, and today I'm in the heartland of the Hauraki Waikato electorate in Hana-Rāwhiti, and I'm asking whānau in this rohe what are the most important issues for them.
For me, the most important or the pressing matter that we are facing at the moment is housing and tamariki ora, like looking after our children. I think those sort of two things I'd like to see happen for all New Zealanders, not just Māori alone.
Prices have gone up really bad where the wages haven't gone, so it's not matching. Even teachers like us, it's just not enough. People can't even stay in their houses. See families now like all living together because they can't afford it.
Issues are really, really sad around in the Waikato. The homes, you can feel the cold coming from the floorboards. There's no insulation. And if they're renting some of the homes around here, I've met a couple of the young people with about 5 or 6 kids, and their homes have got no windows on it, and they all had respiration problems. Their landlords need to upgrade the maintenance levels of their homes that they want to charge out of $580 a week.
And the lack of the medical services, like this waiting time in the emergency rooms way too long because of the shortage of the care that's in the hospital for us. So we stay home sick, which gets worse.
Prices of food in the shops are ridiculous.
Hard to buy groceries and it ain't. Everything's going up. Food, clothes for your back.
There are employment issues, and when I talk about employment issues, a lot of our people lack the upskilling and the ability to get real jobs and real positions also. And what that means is that we're still at the lower levels in terms of income. But for Māori overall, incarceration is quite a big important issue also amongst our people.
What's your challenge to those candidates that are standing?
Well, pretty much just to come out and actually talk to our people who are in the community face to face, address the challenges head on.
It's getting all those politicians to come together to actually listen to the people and listen to the grassroots.
No point being a leader if you don't know everyone or even know the hikuas of every tāne and rohe and all that. They can sit there in the high buildings and can say what they think is right by the people when they don't actually know and live what the people are actually going through.
The people of the Hauraki Waikato electorate have spoken. Their main issues: high rents, low wages, and creating more employment opportunities. So what are you going to do about it?
Some familiar faces there to our candidates. Te hunga I whakapua ki whakaaro, te hunga I whakakōrero I ngā kupu Hauraki Waikato, te nā kūtau katoa I a kūtau hakapua ki tanga mai. So let's ask our candidates to give answers to some of those issues, and we'll start with employment and wages now. Nanaia Mauta, how do we raise wages and how do we provide employment opportunities to the people of Hauraki Waikato?
Yeah, that's a big question, but there's a number of things that we can do. We should be investing at the front end in terms of education, making sure that we're pulling more of our rangatahi through education. The government's invested in apprenticeships, trades training to be able to assure ourselves that that is a worthwhile investment that will get people onto the skills ladder to be able to take up jobs. Then there are those who are currently in the employment market, and what we've done is we've lifted the minimum wage to $22.70 successively, doing that every year that we've been in government, and we know that that makes a difference, and we want to close the gap between the living wage and the minimum wage. But here's the thing, what we need to ensure is that the solutions for employment are actually embedded in the local economy. Yep. So one of the ways that we can do that is to partner with local businesses to be able to do more. And if I think about where you went to in Hana-Rāwhiti, we've got an regional unemployment rate sitting at about 5% in our region. So, it's going to be a real challenge to ensure that we have local jobs for local people in industries such as building houses, construction, infrastructure, roading, things like that, and higher skilled jobs as well. So that's the spectrum that we're working in.
A couple of things I do want to pick up on just after this, but I want to give you the right to answer as well, Hana-Rāwhiti. How are we going to deal with and grow wages and unemployment skills opportunities in Hauraki Waikato?
Yeah, e rangona ana I ona kōrero I te iwi me ona kaipapa huhua. Ia wikine, ia rā whakatā kua haere au ki te whakarongo ki ngā tangata ki o mātou iwi. So every single weekend I've gone straight to the people, straight to their faces and asked them, what can I do? I've been a listening ear in every single place and in every single rural town within our electorate. What I'd also like to say is that the Huntly Birth Centre, we went there yesterday and it's about to be shut down due to the lack of funding from government. And these are the places that are really affecting our community head on, heart on. And what we need to do is we look at our income policy and within our health policy to raise that 25% of Te Aka Whaiora funding go to these rural town communities to make sure that our whānau are getting the support that's needed, because all rural birth centres are going to be eradicated or demolished at some point. And that's really unfair because most actual rural towns don't even have a road at the moment. So looking at different ways that we can help our whānau get into employment, because the jobs are there, the whānau are there, it's actually the funding that have been the number one issue for our whānau that I've heard.
How do we grow people's wages then? Because Nai Mahuta is saying you have to grow the education to be able to grow the wages for the people, high school jobs, that
Absolutely.
kind of thing. How do you do that?
So if we look at a rangatahi's perspective, for instance, if I get paid $500 a week, that's my rent gone straight away. What Te Pāti Māori is suggesting is that if the cost of living goes up, so should the cost of student allowances, the living wage. We want to make the minimum wage a living wage of $25 an hour. That's what our policy suggests, and that's what our people. It's hard to get the basic necessities on the ground in Waikato Hauraki.
Well, we've also got to remember growing wages relies on jobs, and there are certain sectors where there is gaps. You know, when you look at, you just need to go into a retail area across the Waikato and notice how many jobs are in the retail and services sector. But it's whether or not you can match your skills to the jobs that are available across different sectors.
So how do we do that immediately, Nanai? How do we try and do that?
One of the things, as I said, is we've got to invest in skills training, and Labor continues to say that that is the sustainable way forward, because if we can invest in our own people, gaining the skills to be able to acquire the jobs, that is a far greater solution than bringing migrants into New Zealand to take up these jobs that we could otherwise occupy. It applies to construction, it applies to infrastructure, it applies to hospitality, and it's certainly the challenge area. And as Hana raised it, in terms of the health sector, we need a workforce development pipeline that will actually be able to service these needs. Huntly Birth Care had a drop in people actually taking up the services of the centre, and that is why a decision was made. It wasn't purely about funding, it was actually about who was taking up the services. But one last thing, in terms of the health workforce development, that's a long lead-in time. So I think that by establishing Te Aka Whaiora and having a workforce development plan, that is the investment that we will see beneficial to our people going forward into the future.
Okay, so as we know, the average wage for Māori is just under $45,000, way lower actually than the minimum wage of $47 or a little bit over that. So, can people afford to live on $45,000 in Hauraki Waikato?
No, not at all. Not at all. And I'd also like to go back to that point around at the end of the day, whether people were going into these birth centres or not, our babies are still at the detriment of not getting the proper care, because the furthest place they can go to is the Waikato Hospital, and the Waikato Hospital waiting times is far too long. So it's about making sure that our voices are being heard in these places and spaces and advocating for it. Also, everyone who earns under $60,000 will get a tax-free cut from Te Pāti Māori within our wealth tax policy.
Ka pai, a rāno atu ngā kōrero, e tai ai e ngā kaitono nei, nō reira ki totunu mai. We have much more after this break. We are talking housing and rents. It's the Hui, Hauraki Waikato electorate debate. He kōrero anō te haere ake nei. E haruru tonu wana tā tātou hui I aia nei. It's the Hauraki Waikato electorate debate. Pōtitanga 2023. We have Labour's Nanaia Mahuta and the Māori parties, Hana-Rāwhiti, Maipi-Clarke, with us live here tonight. Let's talk housing and rents. Hana-Rāwhiti, Te Pāti Māori says it will build 2,000 homes on Papakainga land over 2 years. That's 1,000 a year. What happens in Hauraki Waikato? How many do they get? And surely that's a drop in the bucket, isn't it?
Well, I think at the end of the day, our people want to be in safe houses. The reality for rangatahi Māori is that they can't even, it's the landlords, right? So the reality is, if you have a Māori last name, you're unlikely to get into even a rental, your foot in the door. And so what we want is to have papakainga for our whānau. The bizarre thing is that there's actually 94,000 unoccupied homes throughout all of Aotearoa, and there's 100,000 homeless people. There's enough houses to go around. There's enough kai to go around. But when our people are not seeing that, we've seen in Ohenewai through the sleepyhead beds, they've been able to establish and build different papakainga housing within Hauraki Waikato for other people, but not for my people. And that's unfair, and that's what we're calling out on.
Okay, you also want 50% of social houses to go to Māori. How will you make that work?
Absolutely. So we need to make sure that our whānau are getting, if they're 50% of the waiting list, we need to make sure that our whānau are getting in houses, because as we've heard, it's not just one person or two people, it's 5 generations worth of whānau. You've got more than enough people in our iwi, in our rohe, that can house our whānau, and that's what Te Pāti Māori stands for. There's enough houses to go around, there's enough kai to go around. It's actually the greedy capitalism that's within this country that needs to be attacked. And who's the people that will be brave enough to challenge that? Te Pāti Māori.
Nanaia Mahuta, Labour is promising more state houses in this term. It's certainly different to the 100,000 that it was promising in the previous term or before the previous term of government. What do you say to people who question the record when you gave that aspiration in the last term?
Well, we've had to move beyond that aspiration. It was unachievable. And so what we've done is implement a housing strategy that does a number of things. Firstly, at one end, we've had to respond to the increased demand on social housing, so continuing to invest in social housing, what that looks like for our electorate. More homes in places like Papakura, more homes in Hamilton, more homes in places like Pukekohe and some of the smaller parts of the electorate. Also, we've had to partner with others because we don't have, the government doesn't have access to whenua to be able to build land. So in Hamilton, for example, a partnership with Waikato Tainui has delivered houses, and looking across the rest of the footprint, partnering with iwi is going to be quite critical because the settlement actually had a different set of a different set of obligations for the Crown to transfer back under first right of refusal a lot of public homes to iwi. And then when we think about home ownership, we've had a progressive home ownership initiative to enable low and modest income families to be able to gain access to own their first home. And so a range of those will help, but for Māori in particular, actually enabling whenua Māori to have papakainga or housing solutions that better suit the needs of whānau who live in remote areas. And we've got some very successful initiatives in Hauraki Waikato doing just that.
Pāti Māori has given a figure, 2,000, right, on Māori land, on papakainga land. How many will Labour provide for Hauraki Waikato in the next term?
Well, we've already done some, and if I talk about the actual story, the stories of successful papakainga, I think of Pohara Marae and Ngāti Koroki Kahukura that are currently building homes on their whenua, a very strong advocate or range of advocates there. Repairs and maintenance is the other area, because we know that the last successful wave of housing was when people could capitalise their child support benefit and buy the Māori Affairs loan. So we've invested in Hauraki in particular, opportunities to upgrade those particular houses and down in the Port Waikato area of the electorate.
I know you both didn't give me a figure, but that's okay.
Well, actually, do you know what? The figure is reliant on whānau being ready to develop their whenua.
Okay. I think also is a lot of the times our whānau are sick of hearing numbers, and a lot of politicians overpromise and underdeliver. So I can't tell you exactly how much, because our whānau are sick of hearing a number and then it's not delivered.
Okay, let's talk about rents then, because as we know, a lot of whānau, and in particular Hauraki Waikato as well, a lot of whānau rent their homes. How are we going to ensure that there are protections in place, that those homes are going to be healthy for our whānau?
Absolutely, and we have to make sure that there's, specifically for rangatahi Māori, even for just any everyday person who is of Māori descent in Waikato Hauraki, it's actually installing a rent cap to make sure that with the rent prices going up, the reality to get food, to get gas, to get housing is simply we're living in fantasy because we're unable to get these basic necessities that we need. So making sure that our whānau have rental safety within Te Pāti Māori's tax policy, looking after our whānau to make sure that they have healthy homes and making sure that they have food on their table, because it's not just the whare, it's the whare tapawha.
No, absolutely, but how do we make sure that landlords meet their obligations to those that rent from them? What are you going to do to ensure that happens?
Well, one way that we're looking at from our rangatahi perspective is we've been into huinga taurau of all of our rangatahi throughout the motu who have gone through university. And their number one solution to me, again, I feel like a lot of rangatahi, the kohanga reo generation, our wharekura generation, have the solutions in place. They said the landlords are quite plainly racist, and that if our iwi are able to have go into the stock market, go into the housing market, aroha mai, and they be our landlords, because landlord, Pākehā construct, Pākehā concept, it's not helping our rangatahi and our whānau get into the housing.
So your question was, how do we do that? We've got to use the regulatory mechanisms available to us. So the Healthy Homes Guarantee that the government has initiated will ensure that that landlords must upgrade the homes so that they are warm. Secondly, in terms of rents, we've got to ensure that landlords act responsibly towards their renters, that they can't just kick them out, without little or no notice, and that there's greater protection there. And we've strengthened the legislation to be able to do that. The other thing is that we need to make sure, especially in rental accommodation, which is not public housing, that we have a greater onus of responsibility of landlords to keep improving the quality of homes that they're providing. And Huntly and Ngārawahia are prime examples of where there is a huge influx of landlords from Auckland coming to buy up homes in Huntly and Ngārawahia and pricing out the locals. And, that's really heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because we're from our communities. We don't want to see that happen. So we want more responsible landlords in our communities.
So how do we ensure then, if either of you becomes a candidate of Hauraki Waikato, how do we ensure that rent prices don't keep increasing as they have done after the last 15 years at around about 114% when wages have only gone up 90%?
One of the things is to give a viable alternative, which is public housing, public and social housing. That's why we're committed to doing that. It won't address all the issues, but again, strengthening the regulatory provisions to ensure that we have responsible landlords, they act responsibly towards renters, is another way of doing it. And then finally, it's partnering with iwi or with community organisations, CHIPS organisations, to provide another range of accommodation to keep rents down.
Same question to you, Hana.
It's just holding them accountable, honestly. It's the majority of the landlords within our small town communities are not Māori. They don't understand our experience, they don't understand. People who own the houses usually own the dairies, then the supermarkets, and they're not Māori. So it's actually quite openly racist towards getting Māori in the house, getting Māori food, getting Māori housing. It's keeping them accountable to make sure that we have the right affordable houses, right affordable kai, because it's not just the whare, it's the whole whare tapawha.
What I'd like to see, though, is more Māori going into home ownership. Only 27% of Māori own their own home, so we've got to find ways for Māori to have greater security of tenure through home ownership.
You mentioned kai. We're going to be talking about kai and cost of living after the break. Tēnā koru, ia korua whakautu ki te iwi a pāna ki ngā whare me ngā reti. Ki eita tonu mai e ngā iwi. We are talking, as I said, cost of living and kai in Hauraki Waikato after this. This is Te Pōtitanga 2023. E waha ke ana e ngā kaupapa tōranga pū Māori o te wā. Ko te rohe pōti o Hauraki Waikato te aronga nui I tēnei pō. We have Nanaia Mahuta of the Labour Party and Hana-Rāwhiti Maipi-Clarke of the Māori Party with us live in studio. Now, let's talk cost of living. How do we solve the current cost of living crisis for people in the Hauraki Waikato electorate next year? Not in the next 3 years, next year. Nanaia Mahuta.
I can't promise that. Do you know why? Because this is affecting many countries as a result of a number of global impacts. And, you know, the solutions aren't that easy. But we can try to invest in ways that people feel the real benefits. So when I think of lifting the minimum wage, when I think of providing school lunches in schools, when I think of the way in which we're investing in increasing social housing, those are some ways to address it. But also we can do more to ensure that people have a real pathway to a better opportunity. And that's through better education, better employment, and that ultimately is going to help. Now, it's not going to solve things tomorrow, but a responsive government will say, actually, it's not good enough to do nothing, so we've got to do something, and that's what I believe we are doing.
What is going to be the most significant policy which will have the greatest impact then over the next 3 years?
Well, and if I think about the profile of my electorate and the high numbers of people on beneficiaries, indexing main benefits to wage growth will have a critical impact on 77,000 young people and eliminate poverty at that level. But when I think about my community and what we could do more of, I think those local solutions around creating perhaps more sustainable opportunities to help support whānau, and there are different models. I'm sure Hana will talk about some of the models she knows, but there are different models across the whole of the electorate. That's going to make a difference as well.
Hana-Rāwhiti, again, let's ask you the same question. How do we solve the current cost of living crisis in the next year?
We could quite literally end poverty overnight with Te Pāti Māori's tax policy. Did you know that 2% of the wealthiest people in Aotearoa who earn on an average of $26 million a year only pay 9.4% in tax, while the rest of us have to pay 20.2% to 33%. That's unfair. Look, we all want our whānau to be wealthy. It's about bringing us all up, but it's about calling out the capitalism that's within the tax policy system at the moment. 80% of Māori earn under $60,000. Within Te Pāti Māori's tax policy, they'd be getting another $8,000 in their pocket tomorrow. The other thing that I want to touch on is kai. We've clearly heard that our whānau are in need of kai. That's been the biggest thing that I've heard throughout our electorate, but also across the motu. We are wanting to take 15% GST off all foods immediately, but the long-term policy in that is implementing the kai sovereignty policy that was actually founded in Kahui Tua Mara Kai, our local community garden in Rahui Pōkeka, which looks at breaking down the duopoly of the supermarkets and supply chains. Because we're 50% of the fishing quota, we're 40% of the agricultural business, we're 10% of the kiwi fruit orchard farms. We're ready to go.
Okay, so how do we make sure, though, so let's take GST off kai. How do you make sure that actually doesn't stay with the supermarkets, but actually ends up back in the pockets of whānau?
Absolutely. That's why our kai sovereignty policy is looking at breaking down the duopoly of, quite literally, our foreigners have the likes of holding our kai, holding our housing, holding our education. We don't have the tino rangatiratanga, the self-determination around our kai. And we can have that if we collectivise together with policies like our kai sovereignty policy.
So you've heard GST off all kai here. Why then would your policy of GST off fruit and veg be anywhere near compatible or comparable or competitive when you're only taking it off fruit and veg?
Look, that's not the only solution. And one of the challenges with tax policy is it goes back to an individual, and we assume that the benefits will be migrated across whānau. But if you have a government that is saying we will not compromise health services, education services, investing in social housing, making sure children are practically lifted out of poverty, and that's how we use tax revenue to invest in targeted opportunities and targeted at low and income people, that can make a critical and fundamental difference. The other thing that we assume is that tax breaks of any kind We'll invest in mental health and addiction services. We'll ensure that we are going to continue to have apprenticeship training. And what I'm proposing is that one of the ways that we can ensure alleviating cost of living pressures on whānau is to target the things we value most, and that's what our government is saying. We know that people are doing it hard, but we want to invest in targeted ways to alleviate some of that pressure.
So here's the other thing, right? Māori Party and others have talked about dental free for all, not just for under 30. They've got GST off fruit and kai. The argument could be that it's
too.
The argument is, well, you're only starting at under 30s. The argument is that it's not affordable. Yet New Zealand's debt ratio internationally is very low by comparison to Western liberal democracies, UK and others. Why not therefore start there and go big and bold, which you haven't done?
Well, look, those are our policies in terms of free dental care, basic dental care for 30-year-olds and under. We've costed it. We can't say things that we haven't costed. It is responsible of us to say that every policy we're going to the electorate with and going into the electorate with, we have costed.
Okay, I'm getting yelled at, but I want to give you the last right of reply. What do you say to people who say those policies, wealth tax and others, are unaffordable?
We need transformational policies right now. People in a cost of crisis, I've recently said on the youth debate, it's about a cost of surviving, not a cost of living. Also understanding that the government came out saying that we are not actually in a recession. We are in a recession. The whānau on the ground are on the recession. The only people who aren't on the recession is Fonterra, who's made $1.6 billion worth of profits. I don't see our butters or our cheeses or our milks going down. Our whānau don't see that. Also, can I say that Fonterra is actually the largest pollution, and this isn't a target to anyone who works in Fonterra, it's the capitalism and the business corporations who actually flood and destroy our pepeha like our awa tupuna of Waikato.
Okay, my producer is telling me to wrap and go to the next part, but I also want to listen to these rangatira, wahine rangatira, who also want to have their say. We're going to hear more from them. This is the Hauraki Waikato electorate debate. Kia utunu mai e te wehe kororo noa harea ki ana. E mihi atu ana ki a tātou katoa ki o koutou e mātakitaki mai ana. This is Te Pōtitanga 2023. Kei te rohe pōti o Hauraki Waikato tātou i aia nei. We have Hana-Rāwhiti, Maipi-Clarke from the Māori Party and Nanaia Mahuta from the Labour Party. Let's hear now from a voice of the people in Hauraki Waikato with their question for our candidates.
Ko kahiwi winiata tōpi tōku ingoa. I'm actually a mentor. I mentor our rangatahi between the ages of 11 to 14 years old. Some of the challenges that our rangatahi face today are identity. So within my mahi, I find that a lot of the rangatahi that I work with live in fatherless homes or single-parent homes. They don't know where they come from, and most of them can't even tell you where their marae is or the name of their marae. That's where I really feel like the challenges with our rangatahi are today, because if they don't know who they are, then they feel like they have no purpose. There's actually no funding out there for this age group, and so that makes it a bit harder to source resources to be able to help our rangatahi within this age group. Give the pūtea to the right people, give it to the Māori to help Māori. We're giving all this money to all the organisations, but it's not working. Something's got to change. And so I'd challenge them to give more money to the smaller Māori organisations that are actually working on the ground with our people and doing the mahi.
Tahiwi tēnā koe I tēnā pātai, e ao te pātai. Let's get answers from the candidates now. Maybe we start with the more rangatahi adjacent of us. No.
Yeah, look, it is a challenge. Smaller organisations perhaps don't have the infrastructure to secure the funding to be able to offer the services to our rangatahi, but that's no excuse. In fact, what COVID has highlighted is that we need more locally led solutions, and we need to find ways to umbrella smaller groupings of services to be able to support rangatahi. I think the point that was raised, though, about there's a lot of rangatahi that feel disconnected, that in my mind is going to be the biggest travesty for many of our communities, because the more disconnected they are, then this leads to other challenges, and the research shows that. In my mind, we can find ways to strengthen organisations to be able to get funding. He made a very specific comment that the money is going to bigger organisations, and I think therein lies the real question is, how do we support community groups at a community level to be able to awhi our rangatahi?
Tēnā koe. The rangatahi in and amongst us, he pēha nei tau whakautu kia tahiwi.
Yeah, that pātai really hit home for me, because the other day we actually went to Kākoe around our electorate, and the amount of rangatahi that raised their flags. Yeah, we were a bit noisy, but they were just so proud to be Māori. And I don't have a policy that can, it's a wairua thing. We have to, Te Pāti Māori is about making sure that our rangatahi voice, our Māori voice, is unapologetically, authentically ours. And we're waving our flags, and the amount of rangatahi that came on, who actually may have not even had a kai. We had about 25 cars going around our electorate and just waving those flags, tooting those horns, because we're proud to be Māori. I just want to say what Hana-Rāwhiti was talking about. You may not know your awa, but your awa knows you. You may not know about your maunga, but your maunga knows you. That's our whakapapa, and we have a job and a responsibility. I could not turn a blind eye. This is hard. This is hard. This is hard standing, but I could not turn a blind eye to our rangatahi who don't even have the basic necessities, because I have my whenua, my reo, my whare, my pakihi, my kura, but I always used to think that was a privilege. It's a right that all rangatahi need.
I'm being told to get the closing statements, but I just want to ask really quickly, and they're going to tell me off. Maybe we can take it off the panel afterwards. Nānai Mahutu, you have been targeted by vile, racist approaches, particularly with co-governance. Why do you want to go back into that world and stay in that world that specifically targeted you?
What I've found is the most dehumanising treatment as a Māori woman, seeking to represent my electorates and the things that we believe in, that are good, not just for Hauraki Waikato, but for the country. And so I'm still standing, and I am still there, because I will not be dehumanised, I will not be minoritised, I will not be otherised, and Parliament has to be a place that people see themselves in to be able to take aspiration, hope and opportunity further and farther, because our country needs it. Quite frankly, our country needs it.
You've also been specifically targeted, as of today, directly. Why go into that world, Hana-Rāwhiti?
A lot of people have said, you're really brave for doing this, or you are really, why would you do this? My question is, why wouldn't I? And it's hard for us going in the farmer's shop without getting followed. It's hard for us being Māori, let alone being in Parliament. And my message to that is, we are growing a powerful movement from the ground up. I am a Māori person, and I'm in a Māori movement. And that is what, don't be scared, because it's for all of us. And I think, for me, it's about inspiring our rangatahi to move forward.
I'm going to ask if we still need to do our closing statements, or actually if we can end here, because I think those are powerful messages. But if you want to, haere tonu hoatu, mahi a mai.
Over 102,000 people who are of Māori descent under the age of 40 did not vote last election. This is more than me and it is more than you. It is about moving us into Aotearoa Hau, tūtaks te Māti Māori, for us to go towards Aotearoa Hau.
Tēnā koe.
If we want to progress the momentum that we've achieved under this government, like New Zealand history in schools, like funding Matatini, like celebrating Matariki, like Māori wards, like removing rates off whenua Māori, like ensuring more Māori businesses have access to opportunity, like funding for kohanga reo teachers, like the Māori Health Authority, like improved papakainga solutions on our whenua Māori, then I'm saying we need to continue the momentum by voting Labour. But if people want leadership, service and experience, then I'm looking for your support, and I hope that I can gain that, because all of those who are not voting have to have a reason, and we need all our whānau voting at this election.
Tēnā koe. Tēnā kōrua. Ia kōrua kōrero. Thank you both for your time. Thank you both for your commitment to our people. Thank you both for inspiring us all. And thank you both for motivating us all to vote. Tēnā rā kōrua e ngā wahine toa. It has been a privilege to host this debate with both of you. Ngā mihi nui kia kōrua. I ngā uri o Waikato, o ngā pui. Tēnā kōrua. After the break, it's Professor Matt Ross-Scrooge, Shane DePoe and Māni Dunlop, our panel of political professionals putting perspectives, points and punts for the people of Te Pōtitanga 2023. Kua tae ki te wā, ki a ta whakatewa te whangia ngā kaupapa katoa me ngā kōrero ngā kaitono Hauraki Waikato. E te tāpui tāmakena. Joining us now is our proficient and professional political panel of pundits. He is in the School of Economics, a professor of the School of Economics and Finance and Associate Dean of Māori at Massey University at Te Horangi Matt Roskridge, tēnā koe. She is a broadcaster and communications advisor extraordinaire. Huri no te mahuruhure mani Dunlop, tēnā koe. Also taupara marae. And he is here because the Warriors lost and he's got nothing else to do. He's a professional raconteur and political commentator. Te rangatira Shane, tēnā koe. Welcome everyone and thank you for your time. Right, general observations. Gee, there was a lot in that, eh?
Yeah, that was a huge debate. It was really nice to hear them talking a bit more about Hauraki Waikato. That's my electorate. It's from Kirikiriroa. And it was so great to hear them actually talking about the region and seeing some of the people from there. A lot of the debates they've been focused more on party politics. So I thought there was a really nice debate for us.
Did you hear enough to be able to make, do you think there's enough in there that can help people make a decision when they get to the booth on October the 4th?
Oh, look, I think the way that the political landscape shaped up, it's been really difficult for candidates to talk about their electorates. People are so defensive about their parties at the moment, particularly on the left, and that's really come through in a lot of what we've heard across the debates. I think these guys, they did pull it back, and that was really nice to see.
Mani Dunlop.
I think we felt like we were looking into a bit of a mirror of our past, you know, Nanaia going in at 26, Hana potentially going in at 20 if she can get on at the end of that party vote. So I think what we saw is the depth and the breadth of experience that Nanaia brings to this space, being elected in Parliament for so long, and just seeing the energy and the passion that Rianga, like she said, like Hana said, the kohanga generation is here and we want to, be in places that we're not meant to belong, and it's the likes of Nanaia that have paved that path. And so, yeah, it was definitely holding up a bit of a mirror, and so I think they both really represented those particular kind of kiti of experience. Yeah.
Shane.
Well, both of them agree on the base kaupapa. There's a bit of a kōrero around how we get there. Hana at 20-year-old had every right to be aspirational and visionary. Nanaia, who is a senior minister in this government, had to talk practicalities and realities, and I think they both uplifted each other. And I do want to say that I've seen it not only tonight, but I saw it at a debate only 4 weeks ago. Nanaia has been very progressive and outward looking in terms of her perspective, and has helped Hana along the way. And I think it's a great paradigm for Māoridom.
Absolutely energised, eh? Yeah. More energising.
It's a great paradigm for Māoridom.
Yeah, look, I want to ask, and I hope you don't mind me doing this, the individuals here. Here's a thought that's just struck me as you were all talking. If Labour doesn't make it,
yes,
you can't go worse than someone like Nanaia Mahuta as the leader of the party, could you?
I was thinking a couple of times it would have been nice to see her in between the Chris's when you were there last night, a couple of nights ago. It was, the statesmanly, the balanced presentation, the ability to, I think, bring things back to a bit more of a lived experience, talking about community, talking about things that aren't big cities. It was really lovely to hear.
Articulation of policy.
Yes. Yeah.
Very articulate on
Bring
policy.
It back to regulation a couple of times.
I just think that this is something we say about Nanaia, and yet when we talk about leaders, she never gets mentioned. It just seemed to me that there's a natural pathway there.
Well, she had a crack once, remember?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And I was a member of the party. I didn't vote for her. Never mind. But actually, I was on her selection panel in 1996. That's how.
Yeah, you're showing your age there, mate.
I know that. I know that. But look, you've got to give it to Nanaia, who I think, out of sort of my 30 years of being involved in politics, I've never seen the personal vitriol and hate that has been shone towards her. And you know what? I can handle rednecks, I can handle racist Pākehā, but when it comes from people who pretend to represent us, like some of our whanaunga in the New Zealand First, it's a step too far for me and for our people, I think.
We've talked about voter turnout previously, and the fact of the impact of race being an issue in that debate actually could turn a few people off and not get them to go to the polls, which is why we mentioned about motivating people to get to vote, because the upshot of that and the impact of that potentially is Māori Party doesn't get 3% and Hana-Rāwhiti Maipi-Clarke doesn't make it to Parliament, which, based on tonight, would be a travesty, wouldn't it?
It would, and I think that what what the likes of Hana and, you know, potentially Tamitha Paul, what they represent is this generation and this younger, that if we're looking down the barrel of a national act, New Zealand First potential coalition, we need to have those voices in that place and at the table. So yes, it would be a travesty if we don't have our young Māori in those spaces. But I just want to go back to your original question about, you know, the leadership potential for Nanaia Mahuta. And I think at the time, like you said, she's had that crack, but when that question was raised earlier this year in January, and we weren't in a place, Aotearoa is not in a place in order, and we know that from the experiences that Nanaia has had, the experiences that Hana is having, that when you were on that panel for that leaders' debate, both of our potential Prime Ministers could not say that New Zealand is a racist country. Yeah. After hearing that debate, how could you ever say that it's not?
Yeah, and two Māori women, right? And here's the thing that really gets my goat about this stuff, is the fact that they're being targeted specifically, not just because they're Māori, but because they are Wahine Māori. You know, and this, we're speaking about things actually bigger than the debate tonight. Not that it was a debate, actually, it was a kōrero, which I liked. But we're talking about bigger things here. You know, these are issues that impact us. They'll impact voter turnout. They'll impact people when they go into the booths.
Yeah, right? Yeah, even getting people out into the media and coming and doing things like this. You do start to, I mean, people should never feel in danger doing their job, be they in forestry, be they in fishery, be they in politics. They shouldn't feel in danger at their homes when they're out of the workplace. And we're starting to see, the danger of being a politician now, especially for Māori.
I think one of the huge challenges to the left will be turnout. And it will not only affect Labour, but it could just as much affect Greens and Te Pāti Māori. And I think your point is a right one. Let's remember, folks, look, I think Nanaia will win this seat. It's probably one of the safest seats in terms of Labour's arsenal. But the reality is, if we get out and vote, we can have two Tainui Hauraki members of Parliament, both Hana and Nanaia, and to do that we've got to turn up and we've got to vote, and we've got to get our people enrolled.
Do you think she's safer more because she's not on the list? I mean, she made it pretty clear there. Yeah. She's there, she's not on the list.
I think it matters, but I don't think it's the critical issue.
Money,
the selection.
That seat won't be hers until she retires. When she retires, it won't be her seat.
Yeah. Okay, but in saying that, don't we need people like Hana-Rāwhiti?
Oh, absolutely. And this is what we saw, you know, like kua ū ki te hao te niahuni, you know, like, and watching that and that breath, and just it was just stunning to see, you know, our young ones and that passion and that energy in that space, because we do need that, and it's like, and just the respect that they had for each other and each other's role that they're both playing in the space, and you know that wouldn't be easy to stand up and debate a rangatira like Nanaia, not only within politics but within te ao Māori, you know, and Hana growing up with that. So, you know, nei te mihi kia ia.
Yep. I mean, you're a professor in economics, so hopefully I got that title right.
Yeah. It works for
the auspices of tonight. Yeah. Okay. When we talk about, you know, bread and butter issues or issues of cost of living, everyone keeps saying that's the main issue. Is that true? Is that what is going to determine the way in which people vote in Hauraki Waikato?
Yeah, look, I was really interested today. We started to hear people talking about meaningful work, and I haven't heard that come up much. So that's the idea that you don't just have a job, you don't just work for a minimum wage, but you have a career. You have a workplace which is kind of pāti o whānau. You see yourself in that workplace in the long term, and there's a trajectory within that work, and the work is meaningful to you. And I haven't heard many people talk about that, and it was really neat to see some of the clips that you have bringing that through. I mean, cost of living is obviously a huge challenge. It's something that goes beyond the borders of Aotearoa. There's only so much that our politicians can do. I mean, working with regulation, working with GST, that's going to help around the margins, but some of it is going to be just weathering this global storm that we're in at the moment as well, as best we can.
I think, and just in terms of the talk on policy, I think what we also saw with these two candidates was, you know, the depth of wisdom that Nanaia has around policy, and Hana just having kind of that high-level, surface-level information. I think for her delving into the other parties' policies would help her in terms of kind of, you know, her and countering a lot of what the Māori Party is planning to do against, you know, a lot of the other parties' policies for our people.
Yeah. Shaman, I thought it was noticeable Nanaia said, I'm also asking for the party vote. Yes. Because I would have thought this might be one of those seats where voters get very strategic and support Nanaia, who's not on the list, as their party, as their candidate representative, as their candidate and therefore their MP in Hauraki Waikato, but give their party vote to the Māori Party to make sure Hana-Rāwhiti Maipi-Clarke makes it in.
Yeah, well, Nanaia has to scrap for every single vote, both constituency and party vote. When you're on 26, 27%, and you're looking at the possibility of losing Māori caucus colleagues like Willie Jackson, you've got to scrap for both sets of votes, and I think Nanaia articulated that well tonight.
You strategically avoided the main part of the question around the strategic voting with the party vote. Do you not think that will occur in Hauraki Waikato?
No, I don't think so. I think that Nanaia's constituency vote will have a positive impact on the party vote. But let's see come October the 14th.
Anyone think differently? Anyone think there could be a bit of strategic? No.
No, I think there's still a bit of work for Te Pāti Māori to do to... I feel like they're almost going through a little bit of a change in the way that they're approaching the elections, their messaging, and I think that's going to take a little while to embed. So maybe not this election, but maybe the next election we'll start to see people a little bit more willing to...
Can I also ask just a much more general question, which does have an impact actually, because we talked about turnout. I know that the leader of National has talked about the coalition of chaos on the left. Couldn't we see a potential coalition, if not a greater coalition, of chaos on the right?
Absolutely.
With Winston back at 5-6%?
Well, I think if those minor debates show us anything, Winston and David can't agree on anything, whereas you've got Marame and Debbie totally being very high-fiving each other, having quite a solid, force there. So, yeah, I think they are shooting themselves in the foot a little bit.
Well, unfortunately, they agree on one thing, and they've agreed that the self-determination of our people as Te Ao Māori is not acceptable. So they've got some commonality. I don't know how Luxon will manage the negotiations, let alone an ongoing relationship. And I think if there's a shift to the left by 3 or 4%, you know what, we could be having another election within 16 to 18 months.
And it'd be interesting if New Zealand First drifts a little bit more into the centre once, if they manage to get into government.
Wait, say that again?
Well, I'm suggesting that if there is a shift, a voter shift of 3 or 4%, to the left, the National Party might be able to cobble together a coalition of chaos in terms of Māori Party or ACT, but how long will it last? I don't think it's beyond the realm that we could be facing another election in 16, 18 months' time.
Do we really think that's going to happen, everyone else?
I mean, stranger things have happened when Mr. Peters is at the table, and if he's kingmaker again, and we're all going through some deja vu. So no, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see that. But we're still early. We're still early on. I think we've got a couple more weeks of a few more debates. To get a real grasp on what these polls are.
It does feel like that news cycle's starting to pick up on some of the terrible messaging.
I think so, but I think it's going to be very hard for New Zealand First to go to come to the centre where most of their vote has been won on the right.
I'm sure everyone at home will be moaning because they had the Māori Party and Labour Party and we ended on Winston. Aroha mai. To our panellists, thank you all very much indeed. Matt Ross Scrooge, Marnie Dunlop and Shane DePoe. Tēnā koutou. Ia koutou kōrero. Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. OK, kia mātirohi ake tātou ki te mahere o ngā taupatupatu a te hui e haere ake ana. It's a busy week next week for the hui. And it says there, oh, where ka aroha Jules. I didn't write that. Did I? I did. On Monday, National Party leader Christopher Luxon is our guest for the whole show. On Tuesday, it's the Hana-Rāwhiti debate featuring Meka Whaitiri of the Māori Party and Kushla Tāngaire Manuel of the Labour Party. On Wednesday, it's the Tai Hauauru debate, Soraya Peke-Mason of the Labour Party, Debbie Ngārewa-Peka and Harete Hipango as well join us. And then on Thursday, it's the Māori policy debate. Here we go. We have Tama Potaka for the National Party, Shane Jones of New Zealand First, Karen Chua of the ACT Party, Debbie Ngārewa-Peka, I think it is, of the Māori Party, Hana-Rāwhiti Waititi, Willie Jackson of the Labour Party, and Marama Davidson of the Green Party. Too much e te iwi Māori, that's us. Kia tau ngā tauwhirotanga o te wā, kia koutou katoa, kia mau ki te tūranga o Taputapu Aotea, thanks to our candidates and to our panel. Haumi e, hui e, tāki e. Nā te puna whakatongarewa, te hui, I tautoko.